Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wild Chat. I'm Ashleigh. I'm joined by my two absolutely amazing co-hosts, Adam and Dylan. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the UTEP game, our first win in a really long time. And we're going to be previewing the Duke game that's coming up this weekend as well. We're partnered with Big Banter. As always, you can find everything Big Banter on Big Banter's website, bigbantersports.com, and on Twitter at Big Banter Sports, and on their Instagram as well. And you can follow us on socials at the Wild Chat on Twitter. And you can also find our podcast on YouTube and Spotify. The links will be in our Twitter. So, guys, what are our takeaways from this UTEP game? Amazing first win.
Well, first of all, that was an amazing intro. Tremendous job, Ashleigh.
Thank you. Too much.
Takeaways: we're winning the national championship. We're winning it all.
Oh no.
We're winning it all.
No.
Oh boy.
Nobody's stopping us. Northwestern, purple to Pasadena, like it's happening. But in all seriousness, I'm glad they did what they did. But ultimately, it's hard for me to come out and say that we're amazing because ultimately winning 38-7 against UTEP is something that any Power 5 football team should be expected to do. It was a great game, don't get me wrong. Not the first half, really. The first half was But the second half, if we're only focusing on the second half, tremendous game, tremendous football, and something that you want to see as a college football fan because those are the types of games that you're supposed to be winning against lesser teams. You're supposed to come out, you're supposed to dominate. If we want to focus on, a couple things in particular, I want to focus a little bit on the rushing attack. Last week, it was something that Adam and I said just wasn't existent against Rutgers. And, it really kind of changed up a little bit. We saw more guys getting involved in the rushing game. It really kind of started to show out a little bit more. And shout out to Mike Bijakian. I think his game plan helped out. It was a little bit better this time. I mean, seeing Northwestern put up 38 points is just kind of spectacular. We haven't seen that in all of our time watching Northwestern. So just shout out to the offense for really taking a step forward and improving. I was a little bit worried in the first half when they only put up 7, but then scoring 31 in the second half was just big shout out to them.
Proud of you for doing some math, bud. But, I actually see the way I think about this game is I think about this game in two ways. One, we can talk, analytically, we can talk about the players, we can talk about the performance, but I actually think I want to start with just talking about what this wins or what this win means. I can't speak English today. That's great. First win in 12 games, first win, in like 390 days, 690 something days on U.S. soil, some crazy numbers like that. This win really transcends Northwestern beating UTEP 38-7, right? David Braun's first win as interim head coach, but more importantly, really shows a positive building block after everything that happened in the offseason, everything that happened with Pat Fitzgerald, the hazing scandal, and everything that's still kind of floating next to the Northwestern name. So this win proves that one, Northwestern can win, they can be competitive, and they can also, take care of non-Power 5 competition, as Dylan said. And then, you look at kind of the specifics of this game, and yes, the run game was in full force. Cam Porter played really well, 17 carries for 90 yards. Would have liked to see him get into the end zone, but Northwestern was very creative in their rushing attack too. Jack Lausch got some touches, the sophomore quarterback running from the pocket, really, really productive. He had a touchdown. I think at 50, he had over 50 rushing yards too. And then also getting the ball into AJ Henning's hands. And I think that's something that Northwestern needs to continue to do just in general. I don't care if it's out of the play action passing game or just in the run game. He had a touchdown and 35 rushing yards too. So getting different guys who can run the football, who can be explosive with their legs, doesn't have to be, just the Cam Porter show. So really like the creative game plan of running the football. And, that really opened up the passing game for this Northwestern team, especially the play action passing game. Ben Bryant, and I guess we'll talk about the quarterbacks, the Northwestern utilizing 3 different quarterbacks in the game. Brendan Sullivan was supposedly questionable before the game and didn't play because he was injured. But I still think it was kind of interesting that Northwestern, and Northwestern's kept everything kind of close to their chest about the Brendan Sullivan situation. Also, Ben Bryant being injured. David Braun did say that they are both good to go. They're supposed to be good to go, on track to be good to go for Saturday's matchup against Duke. But, it still leaves some question marks because what's really Jack Lausch's role? Is he just a runner? Is he going to get some more action, especially if Ben Bryant's hurt for a longer period of time? Where does Brendan Sullivan fit in? But I still have liked what I've seen from Ben Bryant in limited time so far. And I know, Ashleigh, you're a pretty big Ben Bryant fan, even with the...
For sure.
even with the big loss to Rutgers in week 1. So I'm kind of interested to see what you saw from him, in that limited action against UTEP.
Look, one of the things that I really disliked about this game, and I think there were a lot of positives, a lot of which you talked about, especially with the running game. I mean, I thought defensively there was a lot of good stuff going on, multiple interceptions. Like, there was definitely a good start. And I think the first half seemed a little, I was like Dylan, I was a little bit worried in the first half, considering we only put up 7 points. We were tied. It kind of looked even, but eventually it kind of worked out. We scored a lot of points in the second half. So it's really exciting to see. I agree with you, Adam. This win felt like more than a win, but I think there's still question marks around the quarterback situation. I mean, Ben Bryant looked not bad at all. I mean, I think he looked better than he looked during the Rutgers game, but there were still overthrown passes. There were still multiple quarterbacks in the game, which you never really want to see, because one of the biggest question marks we had was that starting quarterback. And I think that's something really, really important that we need to kind of, I don't know, something just needs to change, and we need to have that starter. I don't think playing 3 quarterbacks in a game, I mean, obviously I don't think that was the original intention, but I don't think playing 3 quarterbacks in the game is really going to lead us to more future wins. And I'm happy that we at least got 1 win this season. After watching Rutgers, I was a little worried that might not happen at all. So getting that 1 win and putting 38 points on the board is just spectacular. But I think the quarterback question mark, I mean, Ben Bryant did look a lot better, but who do we want starting for this team? I'm still on the Ben Bryant train. I think he's probably our best option. I think Sullivan, he likes to run it. He's not as good as reading the field. Hilinski barely played, but he looked okay. But we know in the past he hasn't really been reliable. What do you guys think? Who do we think we should be relying on here?
No, I'm definitely on board the Ben Bryant train. Remember, he got injured on that kind of quarterback sneak that he scored on. I think that was the third quarter. Might have been early fourth quarter, but I want to say late third quarter. And that's when Hilinski came in. I think Ben Bryant's the guy. In my eyes, he's a more confident and consistent version of Ryan Hilinski with a little bit of a better arm. And he's a little bit more mobile too, but definitely much more of a pocket passer. And I think that's what this Northwestern team needs. I mean, they've shown that they have weapons on the outside. I really like what I've seen from AJ Henning. I think getting Bryce Kurtz back was really big for this Northwestern team, kind of adding that third option. And Cam Johnson, who I think is just a consistent, reliable pass catcher, as that number 2 guy next to AJ Henning. So I think Northwestern has the weapons. It's just who can consistently and accurately throw them. And last week, we actually got a comment in our podcast about why Brendan Sullivan wasn't getting the opportunities. Dylan, you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think it comes down to where we've talked about it is the fact that, in terms of the passing game, he just doesn't have that same ability as, Ben Bryant. I think Ben Bryant definitely has somewhat better accuracy, better vision downfield. So I think that in terms of the way Northwestern is going to play and in terms of Bijakian's play style, that Ben Bryant kind of fits that better. However, we did talk as well with the issues with the offensive line, who did play much better in this game, that there may be opportunities for Brendan Sullivan to come in if the offensive line really isn't able to hold up and need Brendan Sullivan's mobility to get out of the pocket and make something happen. Then I think you could see him. I'd love to talk a little bit about Jack Lausch and kind of his presence and what that means for Northwestern moving forward, because I really think that his presence is going to open up the playbook for a little bit of trickery down the line. I think because we've seen his mobility, we've seen how he is able to run, and he had a great game, getting upfield with the movement, but he can also throw the ball. I'm almost curious to see if you have opportunities where you have 2 quarterbacks on the field at once. This could be crazy, but I'd like to see it. Just some absolute trickery, some backwards passes, and then have Jack Lausch throw it down the field, or he can run. I don't know. Something like that I think could be cool to see. Doubt it's going to happen, but I don't know. What do you guys think about Jack Lausch? What do you think about where he stands on the team?
I mean, I really like the fact that he's getting an opportunity, especially as a sophomore, especially if he's a future guy for Northwestern, just getting game action. It doesn't matter if he's throwing the ball or running the ball. Just getting that those game action reps is huge, especially for building confidence. And I think, especially if he's being productive, 53 rushing yards. That's pretty solid for anyone really on 4 carries. Doesn't matter if you're a quarterback or running back or if you're a wide receiver. So I really like what he's been able to do. And he looked really explosive. And I think Northwestern's going to continue to utilize those packages. But at some point, you got to realize that the defenses are going to catch on. And that's when you kind of have to be able to open the playbook a little bit and maybe Jack Lausch is throwing the football here. Maybe, we're designing some trickery. I don't know. That's kind of where I kind of think about that stuff. But one thing we haven't talked about this UTEP game is the defense. I think the defense was a lot better than they were against Rutgers. Against Rutgers, they kind of played that bend but don't break, but they kind of did break defense where it was very choppy. Rutgers was kind of picking up, those 5, 6, 7-yard plays, moving the chains. No huge plays against Rutgers, but they kind of did just back down a little bit. But I thought against UTEP they played really well, and it started with that pass rush and that ability to get to the quarterback. And I thought 2 guys that really stood out were Anto Saka and Sean McLaughlin. He's really big, 6'6", was able to get a couple paws on footballs, bat things down at the line of scrimmage, just create pressure. But I thought Anto Saka, just the athletic ability that he has, young player too, just disrupting. He ended with a sack too, so that was good to see. But I think he's a guy to just continue to watch as the season progresses. Are there any other guys that you thought on defense kind of really stood up? Obviously, guys like Bryce Gallagher or Devin Turner have really made headlines in recent weeks. But is there anyone else?
I mean, just the linebackers in general, I think. I mean, Xander Mueller also had a pick in this game. I think both of them were terrific. They did a decent job in helping stop the rushing game. Still, UTEP put over 100 yards rushing, but in compared to what they've done in the past, it's a decent job for Northwestern in limiting them. So I just think the linebackers had a really good game, and seeing them both come out with a pick. Also, who had the other pick? Dahan, I believe it was, finished with the third one at the end of the game. So good to see the turnovers as well. I think that's just an important aspect where we had no turnovers against Rutgers to then come and have 3 interceptions in this game is the biggest takeaway, at least for me. There were multiple times where the interceptions gave Northwestern terrific field position, and they were then able to capitalize off of those. So complementary football as well is massive. Northwestern really did a great job of doing that, and that's something you need to see more of as well. But Bryce Gallagher, Xander Mueller, both massive for me.
No, and I think just in general, I agree. I was actually going to say the same thing. I think the linebackers really shined in this game, which they didn't do against Rutgers. And I'm hoping that's more of just a fluke from week 1, because week 1 doesn't count. It's okay. Moving forward, I hope it'll only get better from here. I mean, they looked so much exponentially better than they did week 1 against Rutgers. The multiple interceptions, the turnovers, I think there was better pass rush. I agree completely. I'm just hoping that this can continue against Duke on Saturday, which I guess we can kind of transition into talking about what we're expecting against Duke on Saturday. What are you guys thinking? Win, loss? I know my opinion, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, so I think this game is going to come down to, can Northwestern stop Riley Leonard? I think he is Duke's kind of superstar all over the place. Obviously, Duke coming off this massive win against Clemson in week 1. I don't remember how many, did they put up 28 points against Clemson, which...
Yeah, I think it was 28-7.
28-7, which, I mean, you can talk about both sides of the ball. One, Clemson has a great defense, and Riley Leonard had some amazing runs and some great passes. Putting up 28 points against them is no joke. So to say I'm nervous about what Northwestern's defense can do here, definitely to say the least. However, excited to see, considering over the last 3 halves of football, Northwestern has only allowed 14 points. So that could be something where we're just, maybe Northwestern's defense comes out and shocks us. But Riley Leonard is just kind of a superstar, and he can tear our defense apart. So I'm nervous to say the least about that. And then Duke's defense, also very underrated, very good. I think they could show some struggles to Northwestern, so I don't think it's going to be an easy game for Northwestern. If I came out here and said I think Northwestern's going to win, I'd be lying, but just kind of going to see what happens. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Duke is a really good football team. I mean, they kind of had by kind of their standards, good season for them last year. Duke historically hasn't been the best football program, but remember they beat Northwestern at home last year.
I don't need to be reminded about that game. That Evan Hull fumble scared me. Don't remind me.
Yeah, when Evan Hall fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line, down 8 points with, in the dying seconds of the fourth quarter.
I said,
But this
don't
is a Duke
remind me.
football team. Right now, they're ranked 21st in the AP poll. But I honestly think that they're a little bit better than that. Riley Leonard is arguably a top 10 quarterback in all of college football. Dark horse Heisman candidate if he had started the season, with some better numbers. But even then, he still has the talent where if, goes on a 6, 7, 8 game, just absolute tear. He could totally be in that conversation. Caleb Williams is probably going to run away with it. That's kind of what it looks like at this point. But don't like Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's legit, and kind of Dylan, highlighted that his ability to run and throw the ball. Northwestern's pass rush is going to be really crucial. They're going to really have to contain him. But I also think that the run game, too, is something to watch out. Duke likes to run the ball by committee. But the guy that's really stood out through 2 weeks is Jordan Waters. Last week, 11 carries, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The week before against Clemson, I'm pretty sure he found the end zone, too. So he's a guy to be dangerous of. And then also remember kind of, the defense. And the defense is really solid. It'll be interesting to see if Jeremiah Lewis will be able to play. Remember, he played for Northwestern last year and ended up transferring to Duke during the whole, summer scandal and situation that happened. But he had a really big week 1 against Clemson, ended up winning ACC Defensive Back of the Week. And then he ended up getting hurt in that game, but still played through it. Wasn't available last week, so it'll be interesting to see if he is able to go on Saturday. College football, these teams really like to keep everything really close to their chest, so we actually have zero idea what's going on. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see how he matches up against a Northwestern team that he played against in practice last year. Mike Bijakian still the play caller. So obviously the offense looks a little different, but it'll be interesting to see if he kind of has a jump on stuff watching film too during the week too. So that'll just be kind of my thoughts, I guess, for the game. But really, it's the Riley Leonard show, and it's really how can Northwestern slow him down.
Look, I've always considered myself to be a cautious optimist. I thought 4-win season easy. Not easy, but I really convinced myself that that's what it was going to be. I would love for that to still happen. I don't know if that is going to happen, but we'll see, I guess. But watching the Duke Clemson game a couple weeks ago, I remember watching and just thinking that we would be completely screwed. And I know that's not the usual cautious optimist of me, but I mean, Clemson was making mistakes left and right. That was obvious. It wasn't entirely Duke beating Clemson. It was Clemson making their own mistakes as well, I think. But Duke just looked, absolutely fantastic. They were putting it in the end zone. They were playing good defense. They were stopping up Clemson. Clemson was having to punt all the time, I'm worried for our team a little bit. And I agree. Can we stop Riley Leonard? Honestly, I don't know if that's possible. I'd love for it to be possible, but we played UTEP this week, and yes, we look good, but thinking about Rutgers and playing another Big Ten team, and now we're playing a team that's ranked in the AP poll, like, how is that going to look? And honestly, I don't have a lot of faith, but I'm hoping that we can kind of continue that uphill climb and at least continue to put some points on the board. That's my goal. I think if we score a touchdown, maybe 2, I'd be super, super happy. I know we're not expected to beat a team that's ranked in the AP poll, but would be nice. Duke did it 2 weeks ago, so you never know. But I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to make it happen. But wait till Saturday and see.
So when we're talking score prediction, Ashleigh, like where are we at?
Look, I'm thinking we could put up a touchdown. I think after this week looks good enough to do it. I think we can. I know I said the same thing about Rutgers, but I really think we can this time. But I'm thinking Duke is just going to come out on top. I'm thinking 28-7 maybe.
I kind of agree along those lines with Duke winning by a decent margin. I think if Northwestern is going to win this game, they need to keep it somewhat close in the first half. We've now seen through 2 games that this is a team that can improve in the second half and get better as the game goes on. So if they want any chance at coming out on top here, they need to keep it close. You can't have another Rutgers situation where you fall down by 17 points going into halftime. I still think Duke takes this one. I'm going to say 31-10. Duke wins this one.
I definitely agree with keeping it close in the first half. If Northwestern wants this to be a close game, it's not going to be a shootout. It's going to be a field position battle. It's going to be a hard-nosed defensive effort. And I I think there's too much talent on the offense side of the ball for Duke, where Northwestern can consistently, have that happen, especially after watching week 1 against Rutgers and seeing the pressure on the defensive front. And then even, last week in the first half, especially on the first couple of drives, that pressure wasn't there. So Northwestern's able to have consistent pressure on the quarterback and consistent pressure up front. Then that allows the secondary to play well. That allows the linebackers to do their job too. And it allows that game to be a little bit closer. But, I'm not convinced. That's all I'm going to say. So I think I'm going to have Duke winning 35-7. I feel like this team is really, really talented. They've got weapons. They've got a solid defense. And especially with Ben Bryant potentially being, not 100%, or Brendan Sullivan not being 100%, I'm not really confident in this Northwestern offense. I know they put up a lot of points last week. It was against UTEP. Let's just calm the horses for a sec, right? Let's calm everything down. I don't really know where this team really is. And that's kind of the thing with college football. You play different competition week in and week out, so it's kind of hard to find that measuring stick. So I think Duke will be a very good measuring stick of where Northwestern is. Are they able to play that kind of top 25 talent?
Well, next episode we'll all be together. Is that the plan? We'll be back on campus. If Adam can handle me.
No, Dylan, you're leaving the room.
Yeah, Adam might kick me out, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll attempt a big reunion when we get back next week. Praying for a good result against the Duke game this weekend. But overall, I think that wraps up this episode of the WildChat. Thank you all so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe or listen to us on Spotify, follow us on Twitter, and make sure to follow Big Banter Sports on Twitter, on Instagram, and check out their website, bigbantersports.com. And we'll see you next week when we all reunite after the Duke game.